All right, we are live. I guess I don't know. I don't want to steal Bruce Buffer's stuff, even though he's a Bruce as well. Today, I'm joined by one of the sponsors of the show, but I wanted to have him on mostly just to talk about supplementation and nutrition and things like that. I think it's one of the key components to being an athlete. And so I wanted to bring him on. He's always been gracious with his time whenever I've had questions at his establishment. So thought he'd come on and talk a few things. First of all, how'd you get, what was your beginning life like from a small child up to the large man that you are now?
Yeah. First of all, thanks again, Bruce, for having me.
You betcha.
Bruce and I have known each other for...
Man, almost probably like 10 years, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Close to it anyways.
Yep. We opened in 2006, so...
Yeah.
And shortly after that, so yeah, it's been good seeing Bruce rise to the things that he's become and built, so it's been an awesome and a pleasure to watch and be a part of
that. So now you have your store here and you have a store in Sioux City, right?
Yeah. Yep. And we'll get back to like how we got started in
Sure.
it. But yeah, so there's 2 in Sioux City, and there's 2 here in Sioux Falls. And my business partner Zach Durer runs the ones in Sioux City,
Mm-hmm.
and I take care of the ones here in Sioux Falls. So, it's been good. It's been a growing industry. Things change, come and go. So it's been good to be a part of it and just. It's our passion. And
there we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I'll just jump into how we got started. You want me
Yeah.
to
No, that's good.
About my history?
Yep.
So I grew up in Northwest Iowa and always been, in sports or whatever. And so I hold an older brother and watching him do things in sports. So I started following him, doing push-ups, sit-ups, whatever he was doing, I was copying.
Sure.
And he just started bringing home magazines, whether, back in the day it was Muscle and Fitness and Flex and all that stuff, just reading about the supplements, the things that it can do and improve performance, recovery, and so on. So I just continually researched that, continually dived into those books, and anybody that would lend an ear that I could ask questions to, I was always asking everybody I could to figure out, hey, what's the secret? Then went to school at Iowa State University for exercise and sports science. So that's where obviously graduated from there, and then actually while I was supposed to be doing my intern is when we started our first store in Sioux City.
Yeah. So you actually started in Sioux City and then was up here?
Yep. So
I didn't know that.
So 2004 was our store in Sioux City. And then 2006 is when I moved up here to start this one.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And you spent a little bit of time in the military, I believe, too, or no?
Yeah, just a short time.
Sure.
1 year in the Marine Corps and messed up my back. My back's always been an issue. L4. I've had 2 back surgeries on that. So.
Oh, geez.
So yeah.
And as far as sports in your young career, any big thing there, or mostly just on the lifting side and that side?
I didn't do much. Obviously played football in high school. I walked on actually at Iowa State University for the first semester and realized, you know what? I don't know. It wasn't for me. So that's
that's not very, very, that's like a very top school. So, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was when Darren Davis was there,
Mm-hmm.
Sage Rosenfeld's, and then, so there's some really good athletes. What I realized is, I probably wasn't going to go pro.
Sure.
And it was a hard realization because everybody thinks they're going to go pro, and that's a great dream. And but I just realized that I didn't have the height, and some of the speed wasn't there. I was fast, but and when you go, especially at even any type of college, but especially at a D1 school, it's a full-time job.
Yeah,
it literally is. So,
and it's crazy to think. That's Alan was one of our guys that has another show, but also he's been on our podcast twice. You think about it, and it's like, okay, I have this elite. Each little high school has their elite football player, and they think, okay, I might be able to do something with this, and it's kind of crazy to think, okay, there's 120 of those that are obviously here, and then you break that down, and okay, maybe now 2 or 3 are going to make it into that probably elite level of stuff. So it's a smaller number, but I think it's I guess kind of crazy that you came to that realization, that early. So
yeah.
So talk to me about the transition from the sports side going into the business side. Was that easy for you, or was that tougher? I'm hoping to say it's tougher, because if it's not, I'm going to probably punch you in the face. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The business side for me sucks sometimes.
I didn't really think of it much. I just had an idea like, hey, I'm going to open a nutrition store. Didn't know anything about it. I don't come from money. My parents don't, I didn't have any money. So I told actually my current business partner, he worked at a competitor, actually managed about 6 stores of theirs in the Des Moines area. Like, hey, Zach, thinking about opening a nutrition store. He's like, hey, if you need any help, if you have questions, whatever, vendors, I'll help you out. And they called me like 2 hours later, and he's like, hey, I'd do it with you. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
let's do it. So I was actually telling one of the managers kind of how I got started too. I literally went, I first went to the bank, and they're like, no, you need a down payment. I'm like, okay. So I asked my parents. No, not going to do it. Aunts, uncles, relatives, friends, parents. I
went down the list.
Yeah.
And
I didn't have a care in the world. I look at it back now, they probably thought I was crazy, right? But if there's books on this too, hurry up and get your no's out of the way. Because if you figure out a formula, eventually somebody's going to say yes. Not everybody's going to say no. And it's not like this was the first time a retail store was ever open. So people have done it before me.
Right.
So there's no reason why I can't do it.
Sure. Go ahead.
Nope, you go.
So getting into the sports side of things and supplement side of things, I guess the first big one that I wanted to ask is, what's some of those major components that you feel like that athletes probably need to be supplementing or should be using, you think?
Yeah, and it's a great question, obviously. And as we progress in, years and years, back in the day, supplements were just mainly for meatheads.
Right.
Well, now it's more streamlined, where it's MMA, it's endurance, it's college athletics, high school athletics. And there's a lot of stuff has come, a lot of stuff has gone. But amino acids, protein, multivitamin, fish oil, there's some just basic core stuff that obviously will definitely help with the recovery, prevent muscle breakdown.
Sure. Have you seen in the last few years a big change? Like you said, you kind of see streamline almost as far as supplementation, to where before it was, mostly guys coming in as heavy lifters, now into like all sorts of athletes and moms and things like that? Or has that pretty much always been the same?
Yeah, it's totally shifted. Obviously I shouldn't use the word meatheads, but that's, and I used to be one. So
I feel like it's almost a term of endearment, though.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally shifted to where, even probably 5-6 years ago, women would come in and be like, oh, I don't want to take protein because I'm going to get big and bulky. And that was the misconception. And it's just not the truth. So, and you see major food organizations, everybody coming out with stuff with higher protein.
Yep.
So it's helped to shift the public mindset on that as well. So, yeah, our customer base is just the average user wanting to live a little bit healthier lifestyle. Maybe works out 3-4 days a week.
Yeah.
Obviously we have extremes on both ends, but the core of it is like, hey, I just need a good meal replacement. I need a good pre-workout. So
one of the big things I think has always been pretty awesome is, going into sometimes, previously gone into other nutritional shops, and with that it's, okay, I'm going to give you, the kind of the higher crazy end. And it seems like you will also offer like the, how do I say this? Like the greener supplements or okay, not only do you need, your creatine and or pre-workouts, but, like you said, here's this fish oil, here's this multivitamin, here's I jokingly call it like the hippie stuff and things like that, but that's also a term of endearment. I'm not trying to irritate anybody with that. So, because that's something that I've switched over to lately as well. So,
yeah. I had a customer in the store yesterday. We were talking about, because I got him on from probiotics. He takes turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, a whole food multivitamin. But we were talking, he was saying he doesn't get sick as much, nor does his family. Well, and we talked about, like, if we don't have the base, it's hard to build. Without the foundation, it's hard to build the rest of the house, right? So It's the same thing with supplements. If we're not taking, back up a little bit, because the majority of our food, even if it's organic, I mean, the U.S. Department of Agriculture will even say 7 cups of kale today equals 1 cup from our great-grandparents or grandparents' time.
Wow.
Soil deficiencies, nutrient deficiencies, things like that. So, and the majority of us have pretty fast-paced lifestyles. So we're not getting a lot of fruits and greens and stuff like that. So, getting the basics in there, and then we build on the rest.
Yeah. I think gut health has been one of the big things for me, where, like, actually eating some of that stuff. It's funny because I was raised on more processed foods, things like that. And so, Dave Machad, if he's watching, can attest to this as well, where it's like, you're raised on that, and then you try to go to a healthier lifestyle of, okay, I'm going to eat broccoli, I'm going to eat spinach, I'm going to eat kale, all these things. And the first few months usually are just terror, for me at least. It was just because my, not being able to digest that stuff, it was like I was wanting to die from stomach. So it's funny that stuff, like you said, is you almost need to, like lifting or anything, need to build up to that, at least
Absolutely.
on my end from that. So I maybe shouldn't have started with like a complete bag of kale and just done it, and then juiced that, and then went to town. I was never puked so much green stuff in my life. So anyways, by the way, trying Instagram today. It looks like a bunch of people are waving. So, is that, kind of it for most of the athletes? They come in, and then you're kind of saying, okay, maybe offer this, and this, or is it, okay, I can offer kind of a blanket thing to everybody, at least as a base to start?
Right. I mean, there's definitely some core stuff, multivitamin, and I should say that whole food multivitamin derived directly from food, the omega-3s, the fish oil, vitamin D, and then a probiotic. Those are kind of like the staples that everybody could mostly benefit from. And then we fit the product to the customer, right? A lot of places, and even online, they fit the customer to the product. They just narrow you down into be like, oh, take this product, where it might not be right for him or her. So, it's just a series of questions that we typically ask, like what type of exercise are you, and the big thing too, and I actually watched a Joe Rogan podcast on this, about how majority of us aren't sleeping well.
Yeah.
And that's another base thing. If we're not getting the 7 to 8 hours, and good sleep, you're falling behind already. And it's, there's hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, that get out of whack. I mean, it just starts creating a mess.
Yeah. And then the diet changes, things like that. I see a lot of the guys that are doing like, keto diet, or they're doing intermittent fasting, things like that. Have you seen any changes in your business or what people are asking for based on a lot of that stuff? And do you have to keep up with that stuff, obviously, to be knowledgeable on what they're doing?
Yeah, for sure. We always have to be up on the research, new products, new ingredients. And we've seen diet fads come and go, Atkins, keto, intermittent fasting, all sorts of stuff. And I'm not saying they're bad things. If they work for you, then do them.
Sure.
But some of them are pretty drastic.
Right.
And so a lot of people can't stick to them. So then they go revert to eating, potato chips and diet pop or whatever it is.
Right.
So I've always preached like a 40-30-30 diet, and it's based off the zone diet, 40% from carbs, 30 from fat, 30 from protein. I kind of adjusted it around to 40% protein, 30 fat, and 30 carbs. and that will never go anywhere. A sensible eating plan will never go anywhere. It'll stand. It stood the test of time. It's been here. It'll be here, tomorrow. And some people use the keto things to jumpstart stuff.
Sure.
But it's got to be like what we try to teach in the store is a lifelong eating plan, along with the supplements.
Yeah. I did keto for 2 months and saw really good results from it. But I did made sure to do like a bunch of blood testing and things like that just to see if there was any changes. And it wasn't like my bad cholesterol went up a little bit because of it. Good cholesterol went up as well. So I very well could have, if a doctor would have said that, I suppose they could have said, hey, you can stay on it because it didn't adversely affect you in any way. Yeah. But I loved it in the fact that like it was the rare time that I felt like I was actually full all the time. I eat constantly, and because there was so much fat, I guess I felt more, pretty much full all the time, which was kind of nice. But like you said, it's kind of hard to stay sustainable with that.
Yeah.
So, and as an athlete too, I think it's sometimes, like you said, maybe you have to get in more carbs. You have to get in some of that other stuff compared to the average person. So
absolutely.
I see some stuff over there. You want to go through that stuff real quick? Some of them?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So what is all this stuff and who is it by?
So this guy right here.
We'll do, put it to that camera. Right there. All right. Nice.
So since we've been in this game for now, I mean, just with the stores, about 14 years, we've seen, like I said, products come and go. And what we've seen too, is marketing companies get in the game, right?
Yeah,
come out with products. And for the most part, they just take a generic product, put their label on it, and they market the crap out of it. And all of a sudden it's doing awesome, which is, hey, great for the marketing company. And I'm not saying there's not other, there's a bunch of solid brands out there. So what we've seen was the promises on the ingredient, the promises that these companies are promoting were up here, but the ingredient panel really shows this.
Yeah.
Probably to the end user, they're not aware, but to us, we understand, obviously. So what we've created, and we started it 6 years ago, is NG Nutra. That's our product line. So pre-workouts, fat burners, proteins, post-workouts, amino acids, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah.
So that one is the pre-workout, and then muscle recovery, which is like your BCAA.
Yeah. So there's a hand. So kind of like I said, where we fit the product to the person.
Sure.
Not everybody's going to benefit from this one, right?
Right.
Your needs might be different. So, so like this guy is another pre-workout, but it's got more amino acids in there.
Throw her on top of that other one so they can there we go. Nice.
There.
That's real nice.
Yeah, that's real nice. So just ingredients, we just changed them up quite a bit to fit certain things.
Couple, and then we have one question from a user named Nerds on Instagram. I'm pretty sure that's Lee. One of the guys. Need tips on diet to minimize muscle wasting and strength loss while burning fat. CICO makes me weak. What is CICO?
CICO.
All right, Mr. Nerds. What is CICO? I have no idea what.
We'll wait for him to respond, but touching base on his question first of all, the whole thing is, I tell everybody, you got to monitor what you're eating. You can write it on a piece of paper, you can do MyFitnessPal or whatever, but you have to have understanding of what you're eating and what you're not eating. And since the majority of our muscle tissue is made out of protein, we have to ensure that we're getting enough protein. That way, when we drop body fat, we want to maintain as much lean muscle mass as possible, and we do that through protein and amino acids. So that's the big thing. There's several places here in town that have in-body scanners. It tells you how much lean muscle mass you have, how much body fat percent, etc. So hop on those once a month, once every 2 weeks, whatever. So you can start gauging like, oh, okay, my diet or my eating plan is working, or no, I lost a bunch of muscle. All right, well, I have to increase my lean muscle. Protein intake. Yep.
Sure. Yeah, that was calorie in versus calorie out. So.
Oh, yeah.
Calorie in versus calorie out makes me weak.
Okay. Well, that's where, and maybe he does it already, but you have to break down to what calories they are, because you have your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories you would burn just laying in bed, essentially. Well, then you take your activity level, let's say you're moderately active, you would multiply it by a multiplier of 1.55. Well, essentially, that's how many calories you would need to maintain your current weight.
Right.
So
with your current activity level.
Exactly. So if you want to gain, well, then we have to eat above that. If you want to lose, we have to eat below that. Not by drastic amounts, but once again, it's a lifestyle thing where we just stage up or stage down accordingly.
Sure.
So.
And then for the most part, you're saying the protein, just make sure that you're still hitting that, just so you don't lose as much of that while you're losing the weight as
Absolutely.
well. The timing, stuff like that, do you feel like that's a big factor? Because for me, it's always weird because they'll say, okay, make sure that you to eat this protein or drink this protein directly after, and it seems hard for me to conceive that, like, okay, your body is gonna stop that fast, so or be able to use it that fast. Okay, I ingest it now, and my body's going to be using it pretty much right away.
Yeah, definitely. You have about a 45-minute period for when you're after your workout. Your body's just trying to suck in any nutrients, because actually when we're working out, obviously we're breaking down muscle tissue, burning fat, and etc. We want to minimize the breaking down of muscle. So we do that through protein, amino acids. So yeah, definitely within 45 minutes, carbohydrates you want to have in there. And it's depending on your goal too, but typically carbohydrates, so you get a blood sugar insulin response. Blood sugar rises, insulin comes up to lower the blood sugar, and it takes whatever nutrients you have in and shuttles it into your bloodstream, into your muscle. So typically we want the carbs and the protein together, so that way it's taking up the protein.
Sure.
So.
I see some people use, sugars and things like that as well. Is that directly after? Is that common now, or is that still kind of odd?
No, it's so carbohydrates overall are based on a glycemic index, and that's how it affects your blood sugar levels and insulin levels. So theoretically, the bigger the blood sugar spike, the more insulin your body's got to spike to lower that. So yeah, so it definitely does play a role. Same thing on a pre-workout, where if you can, a lot of people go in on an empty stomach, and they take a pre-workout, it's got all this stuff, but you're not getting any carbohydrates. Now, unless you're on a ketogenic thing where you're working on more stored body fat for energy. But yeah, you need some carbs beforehand too. So
yeah, just to be able to, like you said, fuel the workout a little bit, maybe.
Absolutely, because Yep.
So Josh Howe also, big thanks to sponsorship. If you get a chance, definitely check out Howe Plumbing and Heating and Team Howe. I'm actually going to be really surprised if here pretty soon one Mr. Bryce Logan from Team Howe doesn't get picked up by the UFC and gets that. He's got to be knocking on the doorstep of that. So. Yeah, he says you need to eat muscle to gain muscle. You agree with that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Protein.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I guess, on that same deal of eating muscle, the vegetarian side of things, you see quite a few people trying to supplement because of their inability to get protein maybe elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that through obviously amino acids or something like that, but it's
still going to be really tough.
Yeah. I mean, there's just only so many things that have so much protein, whether it's per ounce or whatever, but obviously it can be done. You just got to eat more of it to get, say if you need 20 grams of protein,
right? Well,
in steak, you could have about roughly 5 ounces, and you'd have your 20 grams.
Right.
Where eating legumes and things like that, it's going to be a little bit more work, but obviously people have done it before, so it can be done.
Sure. The switching over to the supplement side, like you said, you guys started kind of making your own stuff. I know that right now, especially in our sport of MMA and a lot of the other sports, testing for steroids, things like that are huge. And so talk to me a little bit about your guys' process of testing, and then on the other end, maybe how some of these other supplement companies or things like that can get manipulated, I guess, because you hear guys saying, okay, let's have this supplement tested, and it actually tests positive for, some sort of steroid or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the crappy thing about any industry. There's always poop heads out there doing crappy stuff and putting a bad name on stuff.
Meatheads and poop heads. All right.
For our manufacturer, if certified GMP certification, good manufacturing practices, that's set up by the FDA. They adhere to certain guidelines. So, for instance, our manufacturer, when they get a raw ingredient in, it goes into quarantine. So they test it for potency, purity, microbials, all sorts of stuff. That it says, okay, if it says it's creatine monohydrate, they test it in their lab. Mm-hmm. Okay, is it really this? Okay, once it passes that first form, it can go into production. So after production, they'll do it once again, where they'll take samples, they test it for potency, purity, and microbials, all sorts of stuff, to ensure that nothing got contaminated in the process as well. And the FDA does regular audits on these places that are GMP certified to ensure that they're not doing shady crap like that.
Right.
And a lot of our stuff is third-party tested as well, to ensure that, hey, if it says it has 5 grams of this, does it stack up? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, which we haven't never had that happen, then obviously it gets rejected. And if it did ever happen, we'd find a different manufacturer.
Sure. So you guys have pretty much had the same one the entire time, and everything's been good?
Yeah, and it's been a relationship that actually my business partner started when he worked at a different store. He's known this guy. He was a sales rep. Then he worked, and then he, just progressed over the years. And now he's part owner of his own manufacturing place. So it's like anything, after you have a relationship for that long, they're in the business for a reason, because they're good at what they do and they're trustworthy. On the flip side, like you said, there's crappy stuff that is getting out for whatever reason. It's kind of like, I'm not supposed to sell a bazooka, but I could probably find one on Craigslist, whatever.
Sure.
Same thing with these manufacturers. They're not supposed to. They're not going to be GMP certified. They're not going to have a regular auditory system in place. And so they're just trying to make a quick buck, unfortunately.
Sure. And is it like, because my understanding from some of the other guys that aren't in that industry, okay, maybe the option of, okay, I'm making a supplement that has some sort of steroid in it, and then I don't, properly clean, and then I'm making another one that's not supposed to have in it, and you get trace elements from that previous production, or
what's not supposed to, in part of the manufacturing process, through how they clean the equipment and everything, through different lines or different, let's just say if they run this MO90 and then they run the FP40, it has to be thoroughly cleaned.
Right.
That's why they shut down production, they clean it accordingly, and then they restart. So, yeah.
Sure. So that's possible, as far as like, okay, if I'm running at a place that doesn't maybe do as good a job as that, to basically cross contaminate that way. So
yeah, and if they're doing that, they're probably not even cleaned it anyway. They probably don't care. I mean, and I've asked some of these manufacturers, I'm like, how are these places doing it? And they say, well, if that's part of their business model, if they don't do that, if they don't make those sketchy ingredients, that's what we call them, sketchy, they'll go out of business.
Sure.
So it's either they go out of business or they take a chance to go to jail and get a huge fine.
Right.
So
yeah, that seems risky.
Yeah, it sucks.
So and then next thing I want to talk about, some of the sponsorship that you've done with some of the athletes here locally, and I mean, Jonah's been one that you guys have had for a long time. I bring that up just because, like I said, he's big on obviously not getting tested all the time, and make sure that he's not taking any steroids that he doesn't know about. So
absolutely. Yeah, actually I met Jonah. He was in college. I was in high school, and my brother knew him, and I kind of knew him in college when I met him. But yeah, he came in the store probably a year after we opened, and he was into powerlifting, but not what he is now, obviously.
Sure.
And
yeah, he kind of said he made like a huge leap there, even maybe a little later in life. So
yeah, and I think that goes to a testament, like whatever we set our mind to, we can obviously do. But yeah, he's been an awesome advocate for our products, for our store. So is Easton Schuster, Benson Langet, you. I mean, there's a handful of people that we love to partner with that are like-minded, like-hearted. And yeah, it's been fun to watch all of you guys grow into the athletes and just the things that you guys stand for. Yeah. And as far as like you were talking about testing, I mean, Jonah and some of Easton, and they go through WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency. So they can be tested at any time, any place, wherever.
Yeah, it's crazy. They were just here for Devon probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and like they just come in, they're like, hey, we need to like, so then they just took over my office and did some testing and stuff. I'm like, hey, like, but yeah, they don't care very much. I mean, and that's good, I think, in the fact that like, okay, that's going to ensure some of the best possible outcomes, I think, to be able to do that randomly. I still think there's a lot of things that they could be doing to make that better.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's at least a decent start anyways. So.
Yeah. So yeah. And obviously Jonah's clear all the time. And so he takes our products religiously. So yeah. And, and the other thing, a quick add to this, because it's happened several times where actually I knew a linebacker from Iowa State that was taking actual illegal steroids.
Sure.
He ends up getting caught. Right. Well, what's he do? He blames it on a nutrition store in Ames that he got the product from there. So sometimes it's just kind of bullcrap stories that these people make up. Oh, I got this product at X place and there's something. And so a lot of times it's not the whole truth.
Right.
Either. So. Yeah.
I mean, that's happened several times before, I think, in the MMA world, obviously, as well, where they're like, okay, I'm going to, I mean, they don't want to look bad in front of all their other sponsors, right. And so that's something that they're obviously going to try to avoid. So, okay, I need to figure out some way to get past this. So, I guess we're winding down here. Any other thoughts that you have, or maybe any other questions that you guys have out there? Let me know. But I guess some of the changes that you've seen in the stores, and maybe some of the mindset changes. Like I know that almost to the same level, the world of MMA and coaching here, I think the biggest hurdle that I have to get over a lot of times is, okay, we're not a gym that's going to come in and beat the crap out of each other. Mm-hmm. We're looking to, even if you're a mother that has no aspirations of training, you can, fighting, you can come in here and train and have a good environment there. Is that, it sounds like it's kind of been the same thing for you. So,
yeah, and the big thing we tell people too is it's just going to take time. It's just not, I mean, there's been no miracle pill. Well, ephedrine back in the day, used to work pretty dang good. But for the most part, it's just going to take time, and it's going to take a little bit of pain. I hear always people like, oh, I love sweets. Well, I do too. Everybody does.
Yeah.
That's our.
I mean, you're chemically designed to love it, so that's why it works. But.
Yeah. But you got to make a choice not to eat that every single time before you go to bed, mm-hmm. or whatever. There's got to be a balance. So, just persistence and give it time, and so yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you as always for sponsoring the show. Like I said, we love to help with that. So, yeah. Any last words? Anything?
No. Just make sure you start getting a good sleep, good eating pattern, and.
Ooh, actually, I got one more question before I kill this. The difference, I guess, only because I've known you that this is a big thing. Like the difference between buying your supplements online and buying your supplements in stores. It really just the knowledge that they're going to get from you, or what's the big difference there?
Yeah, so I'll give you a prime example if I got a couple seconds.
You got as much time as you need. I was just going to wrap it up, but other than that, we're good.
So a guy from Minnesota ends up messaging us, like, hey, I got some questions on supplements, whatever. So I get his cell phone number, and, we're texting back and forth. I'm like, well, what are you currently taking? Mm-hmm. So he texts me pictures of a bunch of stuff. Well, a lot of them were doubled up, And so I'm like, hey, don't take that one. Don't take this one, And I didn't sell him any of our products. I'm just advising him on the products that he did have. Like, hey, you paid for them. Let's get the most out of them that you can. And we started switching him over some products of ours, and he likes them better, obviously. But I'm partial to that.
Boom.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's the big thing is I could probably learn MMA online, right? I could probably watch some videos.
Right.
But if I go into the octagon, I'm going to get knocked out. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
You got a chance.
And that's the same thing with online. There's nobody to really ask questions. You're not going to call in to Amazon and be like, hey, how am I supposed to take my creatine? They're not going to know. And a lot of times on those forums, and I'll give another example. This guy came in. This was years ago. We're getting people's emails. His emails was bigguns22@hotmail.com or something. Okay. I think that actually might have. I probably shouldn't have said that.
That's all right.
I mean, I don't know if the kid ever worked out. You know, and he's the other guy on the forum probably giving advice to somebody.
Right.
So you got to know where the advice is coming from too, and not doubling up on products and things like that. So that's a big thing in our sport too. We, keyboard warriors or whatever for our side of things. But I'm sure keyboard meatheads. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So and
that's his words, not mine. Don't punch me in the face.
Yeah.
The nerds then asked another good question: where can people find you, and name of the business, all that same stuff?
Yeah, so it's Science Nutrition. So there's 2 stores in Sioux City, like I said, 1925 Hamilton, 5712 Sunnybrook Drive, and then here in Sioux Falls, it's both next to Panera Bread on the west side here, 57th and Louise, and then the east side, right in front of Walmart there. You can check us out online, ngnutra.com or mysciencenutrition.com. And like I said, we advise people, even if you're not taking our products, we still want to help. At the core of our mission and values, we just want to help people, really. However we can, that's what we love to do. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and thanks for showcasing some of the products. And like I said, as always, thanks for the sponsorship for the place. And like I said, even though you're a sponsor, I still wanted to have you on because I think you're a very knowledgeable person in that field. So, and I think it can definitely benefit people that are athletes to go and see you. So, well, thank you very much. And that's basically it.
Love you, Bruce.
Love you too. He just made it awkward.